Hey everyone, and thank you for clicking on this video in the first place. This is a short clip taken out of a full podcast episode that has been recently uploaded. If you want to see that full episode, I'm going to put it in a card in the top right of your screen right there, as there's a lot more talked about than just this short clip in the podcast episode. So I highly recommend you watch it. I highly recommend you subscribe so you never miss a full episode or clip if you prefer to watch the clips rather than the full hour to hour and a half long episodes. Anyways, I hope you enjoy it. And again, thank you for clicking on it in the first place. Where do you think, actually, this is a big thing that I think this is a topic that you like to discuss.
Yeah.
Why do you think people don't think it's appropriate to talk about money?
It's a great question. I think it's an old way of, being inappropriate, asking someone how much money they make, or, I'm not going to go up to someone on the side of the street and be like, hey man, how much money do you make? But I think it can be very reasonable to say, hey, what do you do for a job? You say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh, that's really cool. I think it's very normal to if I talk to you and I said, hey, what do you do? And you say, oh, I work at Joe's Bikes and I do this and I do that and I sell motorcycles, I flip them, I do this. I'd be very curious. I'd be like, oh, really? How well do you do? Or not how well do you do, but how do you enjoy it? And then it kind of flows in the conversation of it. And I think, the older generations, they have an issue of, for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of 1099s back in the day. So you didn't have room to grow. And if you don't have room to grow and you're at a salary job, I can understand, that's where you're at, and so to ask is, there's a ceiling to a point where if you're a 1099 or you're starting a business or you're in real estate sales, you're a loan officer, you're doing something where there is no ceiling, I think it's very appropriate for those people to talk about that. Because if I make whatever, I'm just throwing out a number, if I make $200,000 a year, but I talk to another real estate agent, he goes, oh yeah, I make $700,000 a year. I'd be like, oh my God, how are you doing that? Let's talk. And I'd want to start, building a relationship with him to get information or trade information and create a relationship. But if I didn't ask how much money he made, I wouldn't know how valuable he could be to me, And so that's, I think it's an old way. And I think people are either, one, insecure about where they're currently at, or two, they're in a place where they're walled off. They have a ceiling and they feel like they don't want to talk about it because that's the spot they're in and they can't really grow out of it.
I think it's such an observable metric for someone's value. It's so easy to just hear what someone makes and
yes,
that's what they're worth.
Yes. Yeah.
And so people just are afraid to talk about it just in case you're a little bit higher than them on that scale.
Exactly.
So
and I would so disagree on the using that as a metric of how good this person is.
Yeah.
Right. I would so much rather make $75,000 a year, be a good person, be a confident person, love my family, have a great family, than a guy who's making $500,000 a year who's just a terrible father or whatever it may be.
No peace of mind.
If all you care about is how much money they make, right? You'd look at the guy making $500,000 and you'd be like, dude, that guy's way better than you. And it's that's so false, And so maybe that's another reason why is people hold money way too high in their values of how they perceive themselves, right? If I don't make $500,000 a year, I'm nothing. Maybe that's how people view it. And so when they talk about money, when they say, well, I'm only making a $50,000 salary, they feel they're not a valuable person. But there's so many other, facets in life that you can be way, way more valuable than what you make.
Yeah. Observable metrics versus hidden metrics. So
yeah,
money is the main observable metric.
Yep.
But hidden ones are peace of mind, your relationships. You can't put a number on those. So your quality of life is determined on all of these things.
Exactly.
But you can only see the money.
Exactly.
So people overvalue that and they're willing to sacrifice their relationships, their peace of mind for more money.
Exactly. Yeah.
When in reality, they're not living a better life at all.
No, exactly. And that's a good point you bring up, because usually your quality of life goes down as you make more money. That's something
because you're forced to work more and work harder.
If you're making more money, you're probably working harder, working more hours. And if you're working more hours, you're probably spending less time with your family and not, giving them the love that they need. Not saying that you can't work 80 hours and still be a fantastic dad and fantastic husband and everything like that. But it's the averages, right? We're talking about the averages. If the average person works 80 hours a week, I would probably say 75% of those people are probably going to be not great family
They
members.
never see their family.
Exactly.
That's why jealousy is a stupid emotion. This is a Naval Ravikant idea. He was on Joe Rogan once. I don't know where he came up from, but he is a genius. And he was talking about how whenever he feels jealousy of someone, he kind of just realizes, okay, well, if I want his money or his power or whatever, you have to wholesale 100% take on their entire life.
Exactly.
So with Tiger Woods, his childhood, he was beaten by his dad and bullied, and it's like you wouldn't trade the money that he has for the peace of mind that he doesn't have, for the childhood that he had. You wouldn't trade that. And most people, if they were given that opportunity to switch lives with all these celebrities, they wouldn't do it. Most people, every time I think of anyone and I feel jealous at all, I try and do that.
I agree.
And I realized I'm pretty happy with my life.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think that's a huge, huge thing. I grew out of that, definitely. But at a younger age, it's really hard with, growing up with social media, growing up with all this stuff, you're seeing everything. It's really hard when you are a teenager, when you're, whatever it is, sub 25, I'd even say. You're looking at all these people doing this, doing that. They're in Greece, they're in Italy, they're doing this, and they have all this money or whatever. Jealousy is a huge, huge thing. And I think subconsciously I've kind of adopted that mindset where it's like, I never look at someone and say, wow, I'm jealous of you. I might look at someone and say, wow, you are way more ahead of me. Like, I wonder what I could learn from you and to build myself up to that level. But I don't think I'd ever look at someone and say, envy them truly from where they are compared to where I am. And that's an interesting conversation because I don't know how you consciously do that. Maybe it's that, right?
Just remind yourself.
If you feel that jealousy, you sit down and you say, okay, why do you think I'm jealous, right? Like you start to internalize your feelings and think to yourself, okay, well, what did they go through that I haven't gone through? Would I even trade that right now? So that's it's definitely a good point.
Envy is the only one of the 7 deadly sins that doesn't feel good. So there's really no reason to
It's a good point.
feel it.